Joining us right now is Evan Feigenbaum. He's head of the Asia section at the Eurasia Group. He's also a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for both South Asia and Central Asia. Evan, great to have you here with us. So this news that the president may be backing India's permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council, how significant is this?
I think it's very significant. You know, it's something that Indians have wanted to hear from the United States for a long time. And not surprisingly, it got a rapturous reception on the floor of Parliament in India. The United Nations, the United Nations is a place where the U.S. and India actually have a difficult history together. They don't always vote together. And so the fact that the president has done this is an acknowledgement not just of India's growing importance on the global stage, but frankly of the very positive trajectory that the United States and India have been on.
Is it a smackdown to China, though, by doing this?
No, I don't think so. You know, I can think of 63 good reasons that have nothing to do with China why the U.S. and India ought to improve their relationship. That's been happening for over a decade. It's a vote of confidence in India on the global stage, and it's a reflection that the United States and India have converging strategic interests, including on questions about the rise of China, but not only.
Although there are a number of issues that this brings up, right? I mean, India apparently never votes for the U.S. at the UN. I would ask why they don't, and if they don't, why would we support them in this?
Well, I mean, you need to understand it in context. You know, back during the Cold War, India had a foreign policy of non-alignment. And in the context of American views of the international system in the Cold War, that Indian perspective didn't fit easily with American worldviews. But what's happened is, really, I think over a decade now, American and Indian strategic perspectives have been converging. And on a lot of questions, the United States and India have very fundamentally aligned interests. By the way, India is also a democratic power. It's a continental power. And so in that sense, I think, frankly, having India on the council is something that a lot of Americans are going to look to as a positive thing. There is going to be a test, though, because India is a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council now. So we'll have an opportunity over the next couple of years for the two countries to forge some habits of cooperation together, working on the council on a variety of very tough issues.
And by the way, you point out that China is the only permanent member that's not backing India in this. Why aren't they? And what does that do to Chinese-Indian relations?
I don't want to speak for the Chinese, but I think Chinese-Indian relations have not always been easy. And I think China has taken a somewhat skeptical view of the rise of Indian power. It is one of many reasons why the American and Indian strategic interests are converging. It's not a desire to contain China, but I think both countries have a sense that there are uncertainties about the way China's emerging on the international stage. And by the way, that's not just the United States and India. There are a lot of other countries that feel that way, too. But I think, as in the past, many people in India now are going to look to see how China acts. Is China going to be isolated among members of the Permanent Five, or is China going to come around and back India for a seat? That's a question, by the way, a lot of Japanese are asking as well.
What do you think? How do you think China will react?
I think China will kick the can down the road as far as they possibly can. And I think, you know, it's much harder to reform the Security Council in the doing than in the saying. And so the president gave this very full-throated endorsement, but actually reforming the council is something that's bedeviled the international community for a long time. The U.S. endorsed Japan in the late 1990s. It still hasn't happened. So China's going to hide behind that, and we'll see whether China becomes more forward in supporting India over time.
This plays apparently badly with Pakistan, which you could actually understand, right? What do you think the conversation is like between President Obama and Mohammad Singh when they're talking about Pakistan? Because it seems that the Indians would rather Pakistan just go away. Of course, we need Pakistan as an ally in the war on terror.
Well, I think it hasn't been easy. I mean, I think a lot of Indians understand what the United States is trying to do with Pakistan. They understand that there are challenges to the United States as challenges to India from terrorist groups. But I think, you know, frankly, the issue is partly the president's commitment to begin withdrawing from Afghanistan from 2011 on. There are a number of Indians who think that the manner of American withdrawal is going to matter greatly, and who worry that the fact that Pakistan may play a larger role in dictating the future of that country in time will leave India holding the bag strategically. And so for most Indians, they'd like to see the United States put a little more pressure on Pakistan. But that's a conversation the U.S. and India have been having for a long time. And the one thing I'd really stress to you is that, you know, all of this economic growth in India has meant that India's trajectory has diverged utterly from Pakistan's in a lot of ways.
Okay.
India's in the G20. And so the U.S. has equities with India that it doesn't have with Pakistan now.
All right, we got to run. Hey, Evan, thank you so much for weighing in on all of this. Evan Feigenbaum with the Eurasia Group, Director for Asia.